I don't usually do a second video on the same radio, but in the case of this one, when I showed it in 2016, the radio was unrestored and not even really cleaned. Since that time, I've fully recapped the radio and made a few other improvements for safety. I had intended to give this radio to my grandfather, but by the time I got to see him next, his hearing had pretty much completely gone and he wouldn't have been able to enjoy it. He has unfortunately since passed, but the radio remains. It's been sitting in my garage for the last couple years, so I'm wondering what to do with it. I think I'm just going to give it away to Goodwill or something. We'll see. But first, I want to show it off, and I want to show you the inside of this radio as well, since this is one of the last American-made Motorola transistor radios. It's from 1967. It's been sitting a long time, so the controls are a little bit scratchy. Let's do FM first.
262 active. I get my light right from the source, yeah, that. To me, they're about the same. That's what you want to do. Bring me down.
That song got played to death.
A vaccine.
The participation may vary, cannot be combined with CompoView.
Any disappointment. Well, Dan, our time.
This thing apparently really doesn't like those early multiplex digital clocks that I have. Can't hear 680 at all.
One home field advantage down the road, so you know, flying cross country in a short, he has to play with.
You can see AM and all that being demonstrated in the other video anyway. The main thing I wanted to show you guys was the insides of this thing, so let me unplug it and get to that. The set has a hot chassis, so you definitely want to unplug it first. I added a polarized cord to make it a little bit safer, and that should protect you as long as the outlet is wired correctly. To take off the back cover, you just remove all these screws here and disconnect the antenna clamp. After you remove those screws and detach the FM antenna from the A terminal, all you have to do is unplug these two connectors from the back of the back cover. It has these two capacitors here that isolate the antenna terminals from the high voltage on the chassis. That's for safety. Purely coincidentally, it turns out that I restored this radio on the exact day and month in 2017 that I am now recording this video. I genuinely did not remember that. Quite a coincidence, really, when you think about it. There's 365 days in a year. In any case, you can see the chassis looks like it came out of a tube radio. It even has transistors soldered into tube sockets, although they're mounted off-center, so you couldn't have actually plugged a tube into those holes. This is my replacement filter capacitor. I couldn't solder to the aluminum can there, so I just ran a wire from the common negative to the chassis ground. This capacitor is also a replacement. You can see it's got quite a huge Motorola branded Golden Voice speaker. And there's some more transistors up here. There's the strain relief for the cord I put in there. I did try to take care in repairing this such that I wouldn't have to repair it again for my grandfather or something. I wanted it to last at least a decade if it needed to. So I changed every single filter capacitor, even the ones that are harder to get to. It has separate AM and FM tuning capacitors, and it has a tuned RF stage on AM. That was a bit of a luxury feature. You can see the 3 tuning gangs there. That's the AM tuning capacitor. Then inside this compartment here is the FM tuning capacitor. You'll notice that none of the back cover screws go into the metal chassis. They all go into the wood. That's again for safety. And the vent holes are only in the area where the chassis is not directly underneath. They wanted to make it pretty hard for you to accidentally come into contact with this, because one end of the line is literally just soldered directly to this metal chassis. So if you touch this, this could easily, kill you if it was plugged in. That's something you don't really see anymore. Now you would just use a small transformer and not have that safety hazard. It's a little bit hard to see, but to the right of the tuning capacitor you can see one power transistor. That's a Motorola high voltage power transistor, and not only does it provide the audio output for the radio, it also does some of the dropping of the line voltage. The remaining excess line voltage is dropped by some power resistors, and it's a half-wave rectified design. You can see the one rectifier diode down there. It's a little hard to see, but it's that odd circular black object there. A decent amount of cost cutting was done to produce this design, but Motorola still turned out a quality product here. Honestly, the sound quality is excellent. It's better than a lot of stuff from this time period. It did also cost a little bit more. So this was the last year, as far as I can tell, of American transistor radio production for Motorola. After that, everything was just overseas imports, unfortunately. This was their swan song, as it were. And already at this point, the cabinet was made in Japan, but the chassis was made in USA. It does say made in USA on the bottom there. Interestingly, this can run on AC or DC because of the design. You just have to reverse the plug if it's not playing. It's one of the only line-operated transistor radios I can think of that is able to run on DC, although that's kind of irrelevant these days since DC service has disappeared. But at the time, I believe it was still present in New York City and a few other areas. Alright, thanks for watching.